What's up, everyone? Sean here, and welcome to another episode of the Hawke Talks. Today, I really wanted to talk about this after seeing other people talk about it on YouTube, and it's been on the back of my mind as well, and really wanted to sit down and talk about it, whether I had a chance. So, we want to sit down and talk about whether fighting games with story modes, they're important or not, or necessary, whatever it is. Story modes in fighting games have always been, like, a very optional thing in my opinion, but it seems to me that it's becoming more and more of an expected thing for the eyes of the casual, and I just wanted to kind of express my opinion on this subject and my honest thoughts about it. But it's hard to say right away whether it is important / necessary or whatever it is, because each select companies can do it well, but sometimes it can be done terribly. So it really makes it hard for me to say right away whether these story modes are necessary or good or to have, or necessary or important for the fighting game or not. Let's just start with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, since that's like the most recent game that's come out with a story mode. Let me tell you that it was pretty much overall a hot mess, and it had cool moments here and there, but overall I think it really did not help the game at all for sales, and I think it actually made it worse in a way because of how it looked, the overall presentation and everything, like what is supposed to draw people in visually is not there. And I think the story mode definitely did not help that department as well. And the actual storytelling, the quality of it is just poorly done overall. I mean, whether it's not like it was a bonus or not, I think it's still, in my opinion, unnecessary for that game anyway to have a story mode. I think, for me, these games are about the gameplay. I like story mode. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to say, but whenever a fighting game does feature a story mode, that story mode has to be really good. It has to look really good, especially for trailers to really help sell it for people. It has to pretty much feel like a movie. Of course, a lot of movie trailers are really good because the movie itself looks good, so that draws people in, and then they actually go to watch the movie, whether the actual movie is good or not. The trailer does a good job drawing people in, so the trailer did the job. And if the stuff in the trailer does not look good because of the story mode doesn't look good, it's gonna really hurt people's like excitement and hype and whatnot, whether they want to buy the game or not right away. And these these trailers are pretty important, and unfortunately they have to feature the story mode. So if the story mode doesn't look good, it's gonna hurt the game, and it's gonna hurt the launch numbers, it's gonna hurt the investors and the consumers' motivations to support the game somehow. And they have story mode being this shitty little mode that's forever stuck in this fighting game, and unfortunately Marvel vs. Capcom is one of them. And in that scenario, I think it was really bad for Marvel or Capcom to even have that story mode in the first place. Unfortunately, for them, it is nice to have these things sometimes, because you can see these characters from different angles and stuff like that. It's really cool to see them fight or talk or do things at these cinematic angles, other than the critical art or super move or hyper combo or whatever. It's just really fascinating to see them from different angles, and that's what these cinematic story modes are. That's what they do for the fans anyway, to be able to see their characters on that screen and show them in that in those different spotlights or just different angles or whatever it is, or in these different positions or situations or whatever. They want to see their characters, how they you know are handled in those scenes. So that's the good things about story mode. And sometimes whenever the writing is actually good and all that stuff, it's really cool. And I think Injustice 2 did a really good job of that. And I think even Mortal Kombat X was pretty exciting to watch or even play, of course, because you know NRS. I think you know they got that whole storytelling down with how they transitioned to the actual fighting part and the cutscenes and all that stuff. It's, you know, I think they do a really good job. So that shows the good sides of story mode. And meanwhile, unfortunately, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite shows off the bad sides of it. When it comes to story mode, it really shows off the bad side. So that's why this subject is really hard for me to say right away whether it is important, necessary, or not. Whether it's good to have these story modes in fighting games, but I know what they do, how they affect the fighting game itself, and you know, again, it goes back to that part where the story mode has to look really good. So of course they have to put budget into that thing, and so if they even you know put a lower amount of budget into a story mode or cinematic story mode or whatever, it's gonna hurt the game. So that's why you have to put more money into it if you're gonna have a story mode. So that's why, you know, a lot of times if you don't spend it well, it's just gonna come out as a subpar product, and it's just gonna really hurt the game really more than it's gonna help. If that was your attempt to appeal to the casuals, not only you have to make the gameplay good, which is a big chunk of that for the fighting game. You know, make the gameplay good, the gameplay mechanics good, the roster solid, for the roster of characters solid. You know, and other things that actually that make the fighting game itself important, like the actual playing aspect of the game. That has to be good. But now they have to spend time making the story mode good, because the story mode has to be good in order to make a solid trailer to help people, you know, get reeled in to buy the game. So it, you know, does create a difficult situation for a lot of companies to, you know, develop the game. So that's why I felt like Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite went through kind of a sort of a development hell, because they really want to make the game good, and the gameplay part of the game was it is really good, but unfortunately the other side, the presentation, the story mode, and the the overall visual direction was just so off that it really hurt the game itself, and that's really unfortunate. I think that was on Marvel's side or / Disney's side, that they want to really push the movie aspect of Marvel into a Capcom fighting game, and that's why, you know, the previous Capcom fighting games, where they had more control of the art direction, they came out to be better products than this one when it comes to the visual art direction, and that definitely helped sell the game in a way over time, I believe. But it definitely left a better impression. But unfortunately, like Marvel 3, the DLC thing kind of hurt the game. So you know that was like a different reason why people didn't like that game. But different subject. So let's just go back to the whole story mode thing. Story mode definitely helped. The story mode definitely not helped the game, and it hurt sales. Besides the whole DLC thing, that's, you know, that's another thing. But the story mode definitely did affect Marvel Infinite in a negative way. So again, it's just really hard to say whether story mode is necessary or not. But if you really want a safe answer, or just like a safe way to, you know, help make a fighting game good, and I feel like a story mode isn't necessary or important for fighting games. What's important is you do have something to do offline. So without a story mode, I think the game should just go back to the traditional arcade mode. I think that's the most important thing, in my opinion, because Story modes, what sometimes, yeah, it is cool to see characters at different angles and stuff like that, different scenarios, whatever I said before, but you only get to see them in snippets, really, depending on what character you like. Of course, the main characters are gonna, get more spotlight, but like, the more obscure, like, kind of side characters in a way are gonna get the snippet of the story mode. Like, for example, Street Fighter 5. I play Alex. I love Alex, and at least in Street Fighter 5 anyway. So naturally, I was waiting to see Alex in the story mode, and especially during the Let's Play of Street Fighter 5 story mode. I was waiting for Alex to show up to do something, and whenever you get to see him, it's really cool. But you only get to see him in snippets. And he really doesn't do anything much. So it's like, what the hell? Like, okay, that's cool, I guess. But like I said, it only shows characters in snippets. But when it comes to arcade mode, you really get to engage with that character in a way, depending on how well the arcade mode is well done. But for the most part, it puts you with that character that you like right away. So sometimes you get an intro, you get a middle cutscene, like a rival cutscene or whatever, and you get to the end. You get to see how their result is, or how they resolve that situation, their goal, or whatever it is that they want to achieve. You get to see that, and that's like what how you get to know your character that way. Not only for gameplay, but just backstory wise. Like, you get to know that character in that angle, and I think that those things are really important if you're gonna have some sort of offline experience, and these offline experiences are really important because not a whole lot of people are gonna play online the entire time. They kind of want to get away from that whole online thing sometimes, or a lot of times, excuse me, just because they don't want to feel salty, or they don't want to feel that loss really hard, or whatever it is, that negativity that you get from playing people online. You see people teabagging or whatever it is. Like, they don't want to experience the negativity or the negative sides of playing online. So that's why the offline experiences are just as important as the online, and that's why in my opinion, arcade mode is more important, because you get to really get to know these characters a lot better than story mode. Story mode is like a very, very one-time thing. Like, I feel like a lot of these story modes are just played once and that's it. Like, it's like a movie, a lot of times. You're really not gonna really play it more than once. There are a lot of them are like really long, or it can be short, but a lot of them are like 3 hours. So are you gonna really go through 3 hours again of the same thing over and over again, and only get to see a little snippet? Meanwhile, with arcade mode, you get to experience it however many times with each character. Like, you get to experience it 30 times, or 40, or whatever it is, how many characters you have in the roster at launch anyway. Let's just go off by that. So you really get to know these characters. Maybe arcade mode can be important because you get to not only know the characters, maybe you might pick up that character after, like, oh, I really want to keep playing with that character because arcade mode really helped introduce me to this character, and I think this character is cool because whatever it is that they went through in arcade mode, and also you get to know what their special moves or what their gimmick is or whatever it is that they're about in the gameplay side, why you're fighting computers or whatever. So that's why it's a good way to introduce the audience of what these characters are, and I think arcade mode does a really good job of that, rather than story mode, because again, these story modes only show these characters in snippets, and a lot of these fights have stupid reasons. So it's it's just it really is hard to make these things really good all the time. Like, only select fighting games does it really well, and I feel like NRS does it. They're really on point constantly as of late, because they've been pretty consistent as of as good story modes for now. Let's see how they do with MK11 or whatever, or whatever they're gonna call it for the next one, or Injustice 3 or whatever. now not only story modes have to be, you know, good in the looks department, they have to kind of feel cool as well. And what I mean is, like, a typical fighting game story will have just a cutscene and it just kind of jumps you into that fight, and then, oh, you know, you didn't press your buttons or whatever. But games like Tekken 7 do a really good job setting you up to that fight. Like, you know, you have cutscene, and then you have Akuma doing a fireball, and then Heihachi just, you know, moves to the side, and then, you know, you're actually like, it actually transitions you to that fight, like, right after. Like, it does a really good smooth transition with that, and it's really cool. And also, like, Injustice does a really good job of transitioning of that as well. So these scenes have to really transition well into the actual fight. So that's another thing about these story modes, that they have to actually, you know, tie in well with the actual gameplay as well. And games like Guilty Gear, they really don't have that. It's just it essentially is like a visual novel movie in a way. They have like a lot of these text boxes and stuff, and then you have a couple of actual cutscenes with the characters moving and stuff like that with the in-game engine, which they do look cool, but I don't know how I feel for that as a story mode. Like, it's just a movie. If you're gonna have a movie, you might as well just, you know, wait later, and then whenever you feel confident to spend some money, you might as well make that into an anime or something. I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. If you're gonna have that kind of story mode, like, it just doesn't make sense to me. You're playing a game, but now you're playing a movie in a game, like, especially for a fighting game, where a fighting game where, you know, which is a genre where it really relies on gameplay. Now you're playing a movie, and you're not just doing anything. You just sit there and just read or listen to the dialogue and stuff like that. It's just, so if you're really gonna have a story mode, at least have some gameplay into it, because it's a video game. You're not, you know, you shouldn't just sit there and watch a movie. Like, I don't know, it's such a weird little thing that happens in video games. That's how I feel when it comes to that kind of that story mode. If they threw that gameplay in there with Guilty Gear, I felt like that Guilty Gear story mode would have been a lot more solid and fun. But it's just pretty much overall like a movie. It's not a bad movie for what it is, but because it didn't have any gameplay, it was just like, what? Like, I actually tried to do a Let's Play with my friend Justin, and it was up on YouTube on the second channel, like, for a couple of days, and then later I found out the hard way that you're not supposed to do that, and I actually got a strike for that. Again, if you're gonna have a story mode, at least put fighting parts in it. This is, I don't know, if you're gonna spend some budget on the story mode like that, you might as well make it into a whole separate, like, anime or whatever, and make it a lot more, you know, fleshed out as an anime OVA or movie or whatever. That's just how I honestly feel about that. So I guess back to the whole subject about story mode in fighting games, whether they are necessary or important or not. In my opinion, I guess overall with everything I've said, if you're gonna just to play it safe, I really feel that they shouldn't be the forefront of fighting games. I feel like they should really focus on the fighting aspect of it, like the gameplay mechanics, and all that stuff. The actual playing of the game should be good. That's the actual, like, that should be the #1 thing. And then #2, arcade mode. That should be really important as well. Like, you should have, you know, these experiences over a story mode. At least Injustice 2 have both of these things, so you can experience it, you know, more than once, and you can not only see the story mode, but you get to really see the individual cutscenes or individual endings or whatever for each character, to get to know those characters even more. So overall, Injustice 2 is like a really overall solid package. Now it's just a matter of the competitive meta that people kind of complain about. But as as a video game, it's good. It's a good overall package. And it has a solid roster of characters. It has a pretty good story mode. It has an arcade mode, sort of, for you to go through for each character. And overall, it's a huge win for them. And when it comes to games like Marvel, they should at least have a solid arcade experience. You know, same with Street Fighter and all that stuff. That's what they're known to do, and they do a pretty good job with that. They've done that with Street Fighter 4, and of course all the other Street Fighter games. And I actually really like the endings for Marvel 3 series, or Ultimate and Vanilla. I did like those arcade experiences, and now Street Fighter 5 is going to come out with a arcade edition, which does have these like timelines, and I think it's really cool, just from seeing them. And then so I really look forward to these things once they come out, and at least it's free. So I'm definitely looking forward to that, and I have something to do, and hopefully they're a competent way of grinding for fight money and stuff like that. So yeah, I feel like story mode is not the most important thing in fighting games. It should really be just like a bonus. And if you're gonna have a story mode, not only have it look good and stuff like that, but you need to have gameplay in there. So Guilty Gear, they need to have gameplay in there. Dragon Ball FighterZ, you know, it's from the same company. Hopefully that has actual fighting in it for you to do, besides just looking at it. If it's just like another thing it's just another movie, it's probably gonna be a sort of a disappointment. But hopefully the actual story itself is, you know, all right, decent at least. But as a fighting game story mode, put fighting in there, please. Come on. but yeah, but everything with that said, it really isn't important in my opinion for fighting games. You need to have gameplay to be good, and you need to have an arcade mode. You really get to know the characters better that way, gameplay and backstory wise. So or you skip their stories altogether. Like, you can just get straight to the characters you want to know, and that's why arcade mode is good. It gives you more options. It expands more options out to you than it does with story mode. You're just stuck with this one length of, you know, whether it's 3 hours or 2 hours or 5 hours or whatever. You know, you're stuck with that, and you don't even know whether it's good or not or whatever. But if you want to really play it safe, just make arcade edition or the arcade modes good, gameplay good, and you have a pretty solid fighting game. Oh, and of course you need to have a solid roster. So I don't know, that's just how I feel about it. Story mode is it's neat, but at the same time, that's not what I buy for. I buy for the actual playing or the gameplay perspectives of fighting games. I always love fighting games because I play fighting games. I don't watch fighting games. You know what I mean? So, but again, you know, I sympathize with the people that want to see these cutscenes and all that stuff. You know, they are cool at times, but yeah, the story can be convoluted and stuff like that. It's just, oof. So I still have like mixed feelings about it, but at the same time, I do think it shouldn't be the most forefront thing on your plans when it comes to making fighting games. So yeah, so that's pretty much it on whether fighting game story modes are important or not, or necessary or whatever. That's just my honest thoughts about it. If you have any opinions or thoughts about this subject, whether you know you like story mode in fighting games or not, leave it down below. I'd love to check them out. Definitely, it's always interesting to see other people's perspectives, whether they love story mode in fighting games or not, or whether they are important, or you know, whatever it is. I love to read them. If you like the video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and all that stuff. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like these, and don't forget to check out all the stuff in the link description box below, including Loot Crate, you know, Twitter and all that stuff. and you can check it out below. And of course, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in for this episode. This has been my Hawke Talks on whether fighting game story modes are necessary or important or not. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next video. Sean out.